Dr Bryce Edwards, kia ora, good morning.
Morena, Andrew.
Now,
It's very very wet here, and it's just suddenly started bucketing down. I don't know if
oh,
it's like that in Auckland.
well, it
So,
usually is like that in Auckland. We're having a break between torrential downpours here briefly. I noticed that neither of our names were on the NBR Rich List. Bryce, I think that is unlikely. But any surprises of who made the list this year from your perspective?
oh look, you need to have $100 million in
Okay,
assets to make it onto the list. So even if you've got a few million, 10 million, 50 million, you're not there. So people like John Key used to be on the list, no longer. So they've raised the threshold
okay.
somewhat. And so I don't know if there's anyone that's particularly surprising. There's been a bit of movement, some newcomers. Anna Mowbray
Yeah,
is one of the women on the list. So there's only two women out of the about 120 entries on the list. There's two women. At the top again, as with last year, are the Mowbray brothers. So
yep.
Anna's brothers, Matt and Nick Mowbray. So they're still doing well. They're worth $20 billion or thereabouts. Next on the list is Graham Hart.
hmm
So he's the packaging mogul. He's worth 12 billion. He for a long time was the reigning champion at the
Yeah,
top of the list, but he's lost his spot. You've got a lot of other families that you're probably used to hearing about. The Goodman family, the Todd family. Peter Jackson is in there at number five with
okay.
$2.5 billion with his partner. Rod Jury, the Tully family, some big names. Some of them, a lot of them in the South Island and Queenstown, etc., but most in Auckland, to be
Yeah,
honest.
exactly.
So,
And most of the ones in Auckland probably have holiday homes in Queenstown and vice versa.
oh, and indeed, indeed, and
Exactly. Now,
a
look,
lot on Waiheke Island, in fact, increasingly.
now, not necessarily. There's no problem in itself with being rich, but I suppose it is what you do with that, and this is another aspect of it. For the rich listers, what are they spending money on? I suppose the answer is whatever they like and stuff that most of us can't afford.
Oh, look, yeah, a huge variety of what they spend money on, and of course, these are to some degree these are private issues
hmm
that we can't, necessarily know what money they give to charities, churches, whatever. But we're certainly seeing some palatial living mansions that they're in
Yep.
more and more. We're seeing a lot more private jets. So people with the Gulfstream jets, so they're kind of the elite type for the billionaires.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson's got one of those. Graham Hart, the Mowbrays have got that. We've got more kind of luxury helicopters coming in. Super yachts. Graham Hart's the big super yacht guy.
Yep.
He's got in Auckland. Well, it goes around the world, but it's often in Auckland. His Ulysses boat is 102 meters long.
Wow.
Has room accommodation for 20 guests, 30 crew. It's got its own swimming pool. Except parking space for helicopters,
Yeah.
and then yeah, there's all the palatial estates. But most New Zealand rich listers try to be quite private.
hmm
They're not all kind of very ostentatious. They like to sort of keep up with that kind of New Zealand sort of sense of egalitarianism of not really, putting their wealth out there.
And of course, the thing is, regardless of how big your boat is, regardless of how fancy your plane is, there's always somebody with a bigger boat and a fancier plane. And when we compare New Zealand rich listers internationally, we are the minnows, I suppose. But wanting to look in particular about the challenges of wealth and the connection, the relationship between wealth and politics in New Zealand. Having a large amount of wealth, yes, that can buy you a helicopter and a yacht. It also, of course, can buy you influence in Parliament.
Well, yes, and there's lots of ways for the mega wealthy, and there are. I mean, you're right. The minnows may be compared to the Elon Musks of the world,
Yeah.
but some of these people do actually make it on to some of the global rich lists. So, yeah, especially Graham Hart and the Mowbrays.
Yep.
$20 billion is still
It's
gets you
no
a place
pocket
on the
change.
list
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, for those people. And yeah, and there are, I think, 18 billionaires in New Zealand now. It's up from 16 billionaires. So I think New Zealand, if you want to take pride in these things, once again, we're punching above our weight on the world stage. So we're not entirely a minnow in that regard. But yes, business people, they manage to build their empires, often with working, closely with those in the establishment, whether that's politicians or officials. And so, yes, one of the key ways that a lot of these rich listers have kind of had their nexus with politics is donating money.
Yep.
And so there's hardly anyone in the top 10 of this rich list that isn't well known for donating money. So Graham Hart in the last 2 years has donated about 700,000. So yeah, nearly $1 million to parties of the right. All the rest, are fairly big, are quite generous to the parties. Not always to the parties of the right. Some of them are giving to the left. One rich lister in particular is quite interesting. Philip Mills. He runs the Les Mills chain of gyms, and he's well known for donating more to the left, to the Green Party, the Labour Party, and he's kind of a bit of a standout on this list because he's outspoken on politics, but unlike the others who are calling for less regulation, lower taxes, more ability for foreign investors to buy things in New Zealand, he's saying the opposite. He's saying we need a capital gains tax. He's warning about the growing cronyism in New Zealand politics. So he's really worried about, I guess, being rich and what the other his rich mates are also doing to the country. But you can also look at what they're doing in terms of lobbying, their connections for pushing forward agendas that will increase their portfolios.
Yeah, now, and again, nothing wrong with giving money to politics, and we do have some checks and
Totally
balances in place to make sure that things aren't there. Just wanting to take the example of Peter Jackson. A few years back, basically, Peter Jackson put a whole bunch of money into the Wellington mayoral elections in order to get certain favours for zoning for his operation in Miramar. That, I suppose, a recent example of a direct connection between, if I put some money down, I'll get the result that I want in terms of zoning.
Yeah, I think you're right to be quite skeptical of Peter Jackson in that regard, but I would point out there's no real connection between his donations and what he got. And I don't think there's any evidence that his motives were as I don't know what you call it, as I was going to say corrupt. That's not right.
No.
I don't think his motives are necessarily as cynical as that. We don't know. And he put some money into the mayoral campaign of Andy Foster, who did become mayor. And I think in many ways that mayoral candidate was in line already with Peter Jackson's kind of policies. So I think he was probably more rewarding someone that he felt was already doing the right things. But I think there is room to be skeptical about whether such rich listers, what they're giving money for, and I've got no doubt some of them do get influence.
And hey, we're coming into local body elections, of course, this year. If I don't know, for example, the Mowbray said, you know what, we want a new helicopter pad in our suburban neighbourhood. A generous donation to a local body candidate, again, would be a very bad look. But from what you're saying is we're not really seeing that level of involvement in New Zealand?
I was just trying to stop us being sued by Peter Jackson for saying he's corrupt.
No, we won't say that at all.
No, I think these things do go on, and I think we need much more scrutiny of it. So no, I'm not at all trying to say that all things are above board. It's just hard to prove because by the very nature of these things, they are behind the scenes, and you don't really know.
One of the challenges on this one is in order to be a politician in New Zealand, you need to have a certain net worth. You need to be wealthy. And of course, being in a position of power puts you in a position where you're able to accumulate more wealth and more influence and the wealth that brings. It's a bit of a closed loop system in some ways, that there isn't I mean, yes, we're in a representative democracy, but yeah, it's generally representing the interests of the rich listers more than those that are perhaps struggling.
I entirely agree with that notion. I think in theory, of course, anyone can stand for Parliament. You put down a deposit of a few $100s, and that in theory is all you need to do. And we do get people without a lot of wealth in Parliament, especially coming through the lists of some of the more minor parties.
Yep.
But it is true that it tends to be the people with a lot of wealth. And so, I think it's the average MP has 2.5 properties in our current Parliament.
Yeah.
So, whereas, there's a lot of New Zealanders with 0 properties. So, yeah, there is a big difference between the wealth assets of your average MP and your average New Zealander. So you're right. And of course, they tend to, do well during their time in politics because they're quite well paid and they can put a lot of that money into investments. They're connected with the right people. So yeah, I think you're right to be to see the connection there.
And of course, their time in politics often lends to an opportunity for them to be part of lobbying organisations afterwards, and then that whole system perpetuates itself.
Indeed.
Bryce, I just want to say, really appreciate the work that you do at the Integrity Institute, asking some of these tough questions, staying on the right side of not getting sued for them, of course. But thanks for your insight on this matter. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.